A couple of Saturdays ago, I was watching the SEC championship. Being a huge football fan, I'd been looking forward to this game for quite some time, and it was early in the first quarter, and I received a phone call from my friend Patrick, who's a member here at the church. And so I was kind of wondering, well, I wonder what this phone call is all about. So I pick it up, trying to see, what is happening. And he's like, hey, Walt, are you at the church? And I was like, no, I'm actually watching the game. And he's like, well, don't mean to interrupt you, but I have a question. Is it okay if I swing by the church to drop some food off? I can't be at church tomorrow, and I know that it's the first Sunday of the month when we have our food donation. And so I was wondering if I could swing by and drop it off this afternoon. And I said, yeah, that's great. He had a key, so he was able to come in and drop the food off. But I guess I had this bit of curiosity in my voice or confusion of, why maybe he told me Stacy and the kids were coming, but they couldn't bring the food. And so I don't know if he heard that confusion in my voice, but he kind of answered the question that I was asking in my head, well, why don't they just take it tomorrow? And he's like, I'm glad you could let me come to church because I actually have a decent amount of food, and I know with Stacy trying to get 2 kids ready, that would be hard for her to bring a couple of boxes. And then so I said, well, why do y'all have so much food? And he told me that it was James, his youngest child's birthday the week before. And James had just turned 6. And so James was having this birthday party. And James was telling them all that he wanted from, the cakes to, that's the cool thing about your birthdays, when you get to help plan your party. But James had one request that was different than most kids' requests who are 6 years old. James said, you know what? I don't want any gifts this year. I don't want them to bring gifts to me. He's like, what I want to do is all my friends and their parents to bring food, to bring canned food, the food that we accept each month at our church. And he said, I would rather this year give something to people than to receive something. And for me, that just blows my mind. Because I remember when I was a kid, how awesome your birthday was. It was up there with another day, Christmas. And those were like the 2 most important days of the year for any little kid. And maybe still for a bunch of adults. Because, Christmas is like you get the time with your family, you're getting to open gifts, and it's just a wonderful time. And then your birthday, that's like your day. That is the day where we celebrate ourselves. The day where we also open gifts. And so it blew my mind that this little kid, this little boy, 6 years old, got it. He understood what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. He understood what Christmas means. That life is all about sharing and caring for one another. Because we care for one another because God cares for us. And so as we gather this night, we think about what the true meaning of Christmas is. And the true meaning of Christmas is that God cares about all people and wants everyone to know that they are loved. Therefore, Jesus is born so that the world might know that God loves us. The reason why God came into this world in the form of a little baby was so that we might know that we are loved by God. And so that we might know that we are cared for, that we are cherished, and that we are loved. But also, as you think about it, a baby has to be cared for. A baby has to be fed, changed. And if you think about that God trusted Mary and Joseph, 2 teenagers, to care for God in the flesh. And so we are called to care for one another, because when we care for one another, we are caring for God. And so I always love to hear this Christmas story read every Christmas Eve, because it reminds me how God cares for us and how God appeared to us in the form of a child, a small baby who needed to be cared for. And I love to think about Mary and Joseph as they're sitting in a smelly stable, as they're gathered around, not knowing what is next, and God appears to them. I think about the shepherds in that field, lonely, watching over sheep, and God appears to them. And I think about us in the midst of our busy, chaotic lives, that God appears to us. God appeared to me that day when I heard about James. And I know God had appeared to James through this church, that he knew that he was to care for people because God cared about him. So on this Christmas Eve, may we remember that God appears to us, that God cares for us, so that we may allow God to use us so that other people may see God in us, see God caring for them. That, my friends, is the true meaning of Christmas. And on this night, we gather around the Lord's table, around a table where we remember that God gave his life for us. We gather around this table because this is a sign in which God appeared to us.